Hi everyone, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to be making these two piece. So at first, I'm going to be starting with the palazzo pants. And if you want to see a tutorial on how to make the top, then please drop a comment saying you do want to see a tutorial on the top, and I'm going to drop it. So this is going to be a two-piece sleeveless top, and the palazzo pants is going to be free. Please, this is not a fitted tutorial. It's going to be free. It's going to a little bit free at the waist, but for the lower part is going to be very free. So we're going to start and get right into it. So this is the fabric I'm using. I had 4 yards of this crepe material. The person I'm working for is a size 10, 12. So I have these 4 yards of royal blue crepe material. So the first thing we're going to be doing for our palazzo pants is to get the length of the trouser. And my client's trouser length is 45, so I'm going to be adding an extra 2 inches for seam allowance. So on the top part, I'm going to be coming down. I'm going to be marking 1 inch because I'm going to be having a 1.5 inches band. So I'm going to be marking my waistline on the 1 inch mark. So I'm going to connect that top part is the waistline. Please take note. So the next mark I'm going to be making is my hip line. The hip line is 10 inches. So please note that my tape is still at the 1 inch mark that I made at the top part of the fabric. So I'm going to be marking my hip measurement or my hip line, which is 10 inches. Hip lines could differ. If yours is 9 inches, please use 9 inches while keeping your tape at the 1 inch mark that you made at the top. So I'm going to connect my hip measurements on that line. And so I'm going to be getting the crotch length. Now to determine the crotch length, what I do for a palazzo is I use my hip line and I just add 3 inches to that. If your hip line is 9, then you can use 12 inches as your crotch depth. So for the hip line I'm working with, it is 10, so I'm using 13 inches rather as my crotch depth. Please take note, a lot of people have different ways of getting their crotch length. If you have your own method of getting your crotch length and it works for you, please do so. Please remember that this is going to be a palazzo pants, so it has to be free on the crotch area. We don't want anything that's too tight on that area. So the next thing we'll be getting is the crotch extension. It is the crotch extension. And for the crotch extension, I do my hip measurement divided by 4. And what I have, I still divide it by 4. So as you can see, what I have there is 2.8. So I'm just going to use 3 inches for my crotch extension. So please fold your fabric enough to get the crotch extension and the hip line. So you can do your calculations first before you fold your fabric. If you add your crotch extension to quarter of your hip measurement and about 2 inches seam allowance, this is going to give you the width you would use to fold your fabric. So I'm going to be taking that crotch extension from the midpoint. Sorry, this part kind of got blurry, I didn't notice. So I just took my 3 inches crotch extension from the middle point, which is the folded point of the fabric. On the waistline, I mark 3 inches. On the hip line, I mark 3 inches. And I mark 3 inches on the crotch line as well. And I connected a straight line on those points. Now the curve starts from the hip line to the crotch extension line. Sorry, to the crotch line. The curve starts from the hip line to the crotch line. As you can see, sorry, I did not know that this part of the video was blurry. So you can either use your French curve to make that curve from the hip line to the crotch length, or use a freehand if you want. Now on the waistline, I'm going to be taking my waist measurement divided by 4. Please, I'm starting to take that measurement on the crotch, from the crotch extension line, from the 3 inches I kept. my measurement is not starting from the folded area, it is starting from the 3 inches I kept, and then I'm going to be using 1.5 inch seam allowance, and then I come down to the hip line, and also from the crotch extension line, the 3 inches mark I kept, I'm going to be taking quarter of my hip measurement. The hip measurement I'm working with for this is 44, but I'm going to be using 45. If you want it freer, please do so. And then I added my seam allowance. Now the same thing I have on the hip line is what I'm going to be taking down on the crotch length. Now for the crotch line, you can measure total of what you have at the hip, including the 3 inches you kept for your extension, and mark the same thing on the crotch line. Or you could just put in half of your thigh measurement. If your thigh measurement is 30, you add half of it will be 15. So what I did here was to take total of what I had on the hip line plus the extension, the hip extension, sorry, the crotch extension, and then I put it in the crotch line as well. This is what I do for my palazzo, and then I use that curvy part of the pattern master to connect those points. I hope this is clear. I'm going to just repeat that. On the hip line, let's say I have 10 inches on my as my hip measurement. 10 inches plus the crotch extension of 3 inches is 13 inches, plus my seam allowance of 2 inches, that is 15 inches. It is that same 15 inches I'm going to be using on the crotch line. I hope you get that point. And so I'm going to be marking the same thing I have on the crotch length. I'm just going to be taking this from the hip line straight down to the hem of the fabric. So whatever it is you have on your hip line, whether it is 15 inches, 16 inches, or whatever, I'm going to be taking it straight down. If you want a wider leg of your palazzo, you can extend it. If you want it slimmer, you can just reduce 3 inches from the hip measurement and then take that. So I'm going to be connecting a straight line from my hip line down to the end of my fabric. So like I said, if you want the leg of your palazzo to be slimmer, then you can just go in by 3 inches, 4 inches and connect it to the hip measurement. Now on the folded part of the palazzo, you're just going to go in by 1.5 inches. You make a 1.5 inches mark and then connect it to the crotch curve. Just connect it to the crotch curve, and then that is all for this, for the front part of our palazzo. I'm going to make that connection with the inside of my pattern master. So you just get a little bit of curve from the crotch curve and then connect it straight down to the 1.5 inches you marked on the length of the trouser. So I'm going to be cutting out the front piece of my palazzo. As you can see, there's a little curve at that point. And so on the waistline, I came down by half of an inch on that side and I connected it back to the side seam, and then I cut that out. So this is my front pattern. So I'm going to be going ahead to cut the back piece of this. So I'm going to just place the front piece on the folded fabric for my back piece. The back piece will be a little bit wider than the front. So for this palazzo, I'm going to be having my zipper at the side, so there's not going to be any zipper allowance at the center back. So I'll make sure that I have up to 2.5 inches allowance on the back side, or excess allowance on the folded part of the back side. So what I'm going to do next is to extend the crotch line of the back side. Remember that I have to keep 2.5 inches excess allowance on the back side. So I'm going to be marking my 2.5 inches on the back side from the crotch extension of the front side. I'm just going to extend it over there. And then for the waistline of the back, I'm going to be going up by 1.5 inches. You can do 1.1 inch if you have a smaller butt, but I'm going to be working with 1.5 inches over there. And then on the leg of the trouser, I'm going to be taking 1.5 inches. I marked 2 inches here, but I later adjusted it to 1.5 inches. I'm going to be marking 1.5 inch all the way and then connect it to the 2.5 inches mark that I had made on the crotch line, like so. So remember I went up by 1.5 inches on the waistline, so I'm just going to slant it back into the side seam to blend with the front pattern. And so the hip line or everything on the other side is going to remain the same. The only difference I made here is to the crotch area of the back side. It is usually longer than the back side, the front side rather. If you want your zipper to be at the back side, then just mark your 1 inch zipper allowance from the waistline to the hip line and then connect it down to the crotch area. So this is what I'm going to cut out the back side and then my pattern is ready after that. Okay, so at this point the video was getting too long and I'm just going to make another video separately on how we are going to sew out this palazzo. So check the link in the description and I'm going to drop a link for the sewing of the palazzo. Thank you.